Good evening. It is time for the Fumblerooski Podcast by Power 88 Dean Radio. So buckle up. We are in for a wild ride. I am your host, Adam Wright, with Justin Tucker, as always. And guys, we actually have a special guest tonight, Brian Costu, host of Down to the Wire at Bryant University in Rhode Island. He is actually one of my personal friends as well. We've been friends for as long as I can remember. Brian, how are you doing tonight?
Adam, I'm doing freaking awesome, man. I mean, for anyone who didn't, again, my name is Brian Costa. I'm a sophomore communications major at Bryant University. I host the Down to the Wire podcast. We put out new episodes every Wednesday and Friday. We try to get a bunch of voices on there. I host it with my friend Tyler Tucker. Great show to check out. We talk all things sports. I recently had these guys on, I think last month, to talk some NFL and some stuff going on there. It was a real good show, and I'm glad to be on this side of the table this time. I'm really glad to be here, Adam and Justin.
How the turntables.
Absolutely.
First, you have us on your show. Now you're on my show, our show. So we are. So Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, though? What your major, team you root for, all that.
Yeah, I study communications. This is podcasting and all this stuff is a field that I really, do like to explore, at Bryant University. I've volunteered for positions, and I've tried to work out of the radio station, do stuff there. I'm really good all around campus with that kind of stuff. In terms of other journalism things I do at Bryant, I work for the student newspaper. I'm a member. Trying to think of other things that I do. I mean, I'm just kind of really all around campus. I try to be an approachable face. I've had many people on this show that, just different areas I've had. Recently, I had a candidate for Bryant University student president, Bryant Brown. I had him on the show to talk about some stuff. But just general stuff. I'm like Adam. I'm from Sutton, Massachusetts. I'm an avid baseball and football fan, but I can talk about pretty much anything else. I really just love sports in general, and just being able to talk about it in this type of a forum is really something that excites me.
I agree. Something we can agree on. You and I both, we are both diehard Patriots fans as well. We grow up watching the GOAT, Tom Brady, right, Justin?
He is the GOAT, but
just admit it, dude. You're good.
Just admit it. It's like an AA.
What did I just say? I said he is.
Yeah. Good stuff. You didn't say it clearly. You have to say it with authority, and you have to say it.
No, I don't.
He's the GOAT. But
I'll admit it, but I won't be happy about it.
I'd be happy about it.
Why? Why? Because your argument right now is Joe Flacco, who just signed with the Eagles.
No, I just don't like Brady. I respect him. That's why he's the greatest. But I don't like him.
Okay. If there's one thing you want to learn about Justin, it's Justin loves him some Lamar Jackson.
No, I think Lamar Jackson's just underappreciated. That's all. I don't love him. I just think he's a top 7 quarterback.
Yeah, you're being very serious right now. I can tell.
Top 7. I mean, to make the informative decision not to say top 10 because you think he's better than that, but not to say top 5.
I can't put him above Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, and there's one more that Patrick Mahomes. Yeah,
you already said Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, you already said.
Other than that,
Rodgers. You're missing Rodgers.
Yeah, Rodgers. Other than that, it's debatable for like 6.
Okay,
I think it's top 6, top 7. I can't put him above anybody else.
I'm forgetting who the 6th guy we had was.
You said Josh Allen, and I refuse to. I refuse to.
Josh Allen's better.
In your opinion, but no. But let's continue.
Not my opinion. It's true. All right. Now we've been going over a lot of free agency over the past few weeks. And free agency, make no mistake, it was absolutely crazy, but unfortunately is starting to wind down. But as one thing winds down, the NFL draft approaches. It approaches next week, and we have a big announcement for the NFL draft. Last year, it was held virtually on a Zoom call. It was interesting. It was an interesting thing. I'm glad they were at least able to hold it, but I think we can all agree not quite the same thing. Now, there was the I'll get to the announcement. It's going to be held in person now. It will
Let's go.
Now it is going to be held with vaccinated fans only. There will be masking and social distancing required. So, and there will also be a capacity limit. So they're certainly taking some precautions to this until this whole ugly pandemic ends. So guys, regardless of all of these precautions they're taking, is this the right move that we're going? We're moving back in person and starting to move towards normalcy.
I mean, personally, I believe, they're starting to take the right directions. I mean, vaccines are starting to come out now. We're starting to see more and more things open up. And it's nice to actually see, like, the NFL draft back live and in person, where we can actually boo Roger Goodell in person instead of over TV. That's like a time-honored tradition now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. I mean, just seeing how it was just I couldn't describe the amount of despair that I felt kind of watching an event from Roger Goodell's basement. It just felt so dreary and ugly. And I mean, I think Massachusetts and Rhode Island, all these other areas, at least near us, are starting to get into like phase 4 of the reopenings. Which means that it's the closest thing to get back towards normalcy. Pretty much everything's open. So I mean, this will probably be like the first real big event I can at least think in the country that is gonna, be like really testing this out. Obviously, there's still gonna be precautions in place, but I'm pumped for it. I mean, I think this is 100% the right move. You got to let's get these fans back cheering on their teams, booing on Goodell. I'm pumped about this. This is gonna be one of the, I think, the key moments in us getting out of this pandemic, and I'm so happy to see it.
Absolutely. This is one of those things where things just feel normal again to an extent. Mm-hmm. It'd be one thing to say, like, if this were happening, without any sort of precautions, like people who aren't vaccinated are allowed, no social distancing, like completely normal, like then we could at least make the argument, well, should we be doing this? But they're making all these precautions. They're actually like taking steps forward towards normalcy. This is a great sign for society in general. I mean, if this is the way we're trending, we could wind up moving back to normal sometime soon, with making all these steps in the right direction. And I'm 100% with you, Brian. That was so awkward, and also like just you felt this despair watching that draft. Like seeing Goodell turn to the screen and go, "Let's go, guys!" and then like he's like trying to amp them up, and they're booing him, like every one of them.
It seems like an episode. I mean, it seems like an episode of Black Mirror. Like you're just like watching like this like dystopian society of things happening, and I mean, I will give it to the NFL. I mean, Goodell did start off pretty strong. He was kind of sitting there. He was sitting there kind of just like he was like really kind of getting into it. He was this very professional thing. But I mean, I don't know and most people barely watch the first round anyways. By the time you get to the day 3 to the day 2 and day 3, parts of the draft, he was literally like vegged out on his couch, just going through like cheese balls and all this stuff. And like, he's just like, he really just turned into a couch potato at that point. And I was like, man, he's even starting to feel it. Like he was probably just like, I'm going to be on camera for how long? Oh boy. Yeah. This is really going to be, I don't know. I don't think he realized how much of a commitment it was going to be as opposed to other years.
Right. It was just so depressing, like we needed to get back to normal at some point. You could at least I understand like it was so depressing, and it was so like it just didn't feel right that we were having the draft virtually, but you kind of understand why they were doing it. This is a new virus. The pandemic just broke out. The whole society and the entire nation just shut down. So like, it was really hard to sort of see to see us having that draft in person. So like, it was kind of just a cruddy situation. I'm just glad that we're like a year later, we're finally starting to make steps towards normalcy. But it's just one of those things. I'm just glad. Like, I can cry tears of joy right now.
No, like when all this first started, we had to like, and all this started, I mean, all the closings, I don't think there was a single person that was happy about it. But when it all did start to shut down originally, people, we still had major questions. I mean, people thought that this was going to be like, one of the more deadlier viruses in like our world's history. Like people were not sure as to, how this thing was going to go, how it was going to like affect people our age, how it was going to, just really, interact in general. And frankly, we still don't know a whole lot. I mean, we've learned a lot more in the past year than we did in, that. And I mean, the draft was in, I think, April or May or at least. So we've definitely learned more in the past, 12, 13 months than we have in the last two, so, that information is now there. But, when we do look back and just like how much we didn't know, it at least, provided the excuse of why it happened. But I'm glad that, it's not going to be this, this depressing sight anymore. That's one of the things I'm very glad about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that part. This is all this is just such a big step forward in like our society that we're doing this. But, I just couldn't. At the same time, could you really have seen us not having this draft in person? Like, I just don't see it. Like, I don't see a scenario where they could have made a decision where they're not having this in person. I feel like they would have done this. Like, I don't think this was even in the realm of possibility that they would have said, yeah, let's do this virtually,
I mean, I could see it being within the realm of possibility. I mean, they could have just said, they could have basically, they could have phoned it in. They 100% could have phoned it in, would have saved them a lot of money too. I mean, they could have really just said, we're going to go back to Goodell's basement. I don't know what the ratings are for the draft anyways. I mean, they're probably not going to be as high as they were during the initial start of the pandemic because everyone was literally locked in their houses and no one knew what to do. I mean, so they could have really, kind of kept that money from having this big celebration and incurring all this risk. But I'm glad they're doing it. I mean, it shows that the NFL wants to get back to normal just as much as the rest of us.
Right. They made money then, but that was back when people were locked into their houses. Now, now they're not locked into their houses. If you try to do this again, people are going to be like, Jesus Christ, man, like let's get going. And I feel like the ratings will be down. I just don't think it would have been the right move. It probably would have hurt them more. I just couldn't. Honestly, I can't see a scenario where they would have thought like, this is a good idea because I don't think sure they probably got good ratings back then because they were already everybody was already locked in their rooms. Like this was the event to tune into because nothing was going on at the time. Now, society's different now. We're starting to open up, and when you have the draft again virtually, you're kind of just behind the times, and people are going to be like, "Come on, just get with it,"
100%. So let's go. Let's have a great in-person draft. Let's get into it, and let's hope that the main takeaway from it is the players who are picked and not the after effects of having all those people there. I'm pumped to see it. Right. Let's go.
Let's go. We're back. The draft is coming up. We're all gonna hang out and do it. It's gonna be awesome. All right, now going into the draft specifically, going a little bit more in depth. We haven't talked much about the draft going into so far yet, but I'll ask you guys what are some thoughts that you have going into this draft specifically?
For me, as it refers to the Ravens, I was expecting by now we would have traded Orlando Brown Jr. I've been expecting it for a while, hopefully for a first round pick. And to be honest, I'm surprised he's still on our team. I thought he'd be long gone by now. I thought hopefully the Chargers or Minnesota would bite and we can get a higher pick. So we have 2 first-round picks and maybe package that to get higher or even higher in the first round with that. But, yeah, as far as everything else, Houston not doing much.
Well, Houston's doing a lot.
Not doing much.
Houston has done a lot. I will say that.
I mean,
not all of it's good.
I wouldn't say any of it's good. They're falling apart at the seams.
They're falling apart at the seams. They have brought in a lot of talent there. Well, I wouldn't say talent, but they've brought in a lot of bodies, I would say.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
a
if
lot
it
of
was 2016, I'd be happy.
a lot of running backs and a lot of just quarterbacks in general. Like that, I mean, it's becoming apparent that they're trying that they're going to be trying to replace Deshaun.
Mhm.
Right. So another one thought is so now the New England Patriots, so we weren't sure what they were going to draft going into free agency because they had so many needs. Your guess would be as good as mine. I thought in going into free agency, I was thinking Kyle Pitts, go out and take Kyle Pitts. My thought was what I wanted to do in free agency. Let's take Corey Davis, draft Kyle Pitts, and then maybe try to bring in a bridge quarterback, and you sort of build around that quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did was they already took 2 tight ends. And now I also thought, well, maybe they're going to go and address the defense. They kind of already did in like everywhere. They brought in Matthew Judon. They brought in some help up front in the interior of the defensive line. So now there's been a lot of rumors about them taking a quarterback now, about them specifically trading up. And, you know, there's always been rumors about this. But the reason I find this interesting is because one player who came in free agency, his name is Hunter Henry. And I've talked about this a little bit on the show before in recent weeks, is that Hunter Henry said prior to free agency, he said, you know, I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to be paid, but at the same time, I'm not stupid. I want to win. I want to play with, he said specifically, I want to play with a good quarterback. Now he says that, and then he turns around and he goes to Cam Newton. So now it's either he was lying about that and he just was actually going after the money, or he's been told that someone is coming. And now they haven't done anything in free agency, and most likely the trades are off. All right. But there's been a lot of rumors, and I find it interesting that there's been rumors about them trading up in the draft, and them also needing a quarterback. So, you know, here's another thing. Corey Davis earlier today, he is a New York Jet. He was asked about Sam Darnold. He said he's under the impression he's been told that Sam Darnold's going to be the quarterback this year. Now, if they don't take a quarterback, they may end up trading back because Zach Wilson is projected to go in the second with the second overall pick. Just me personally, I think it wouldn't make sense for them to draft something other than a quarterback at number 2. They'd have to trade back. Now, who's looking to trade up? The New England Patriots for a Trey Lance or a Justin Fields. Now, this is a bit of a conspiracy, but like, what if they are looking to trade back, and there's one team that might be quarterback hungry, but they may be looking to go with something else, and the Patriots, who are quarterback hungry and are looking to trade up. You know, this is an interesting thing here. I don't think there's ever been a bigger story for the draft for the Patriots in the first round not since Drew Bledsoe, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I have some difficulty believing that, you know, essentially, you know, I mean, obviously it isn't as brutal as the Red Sox and the Yankees, but in terms of the Patriots and the Jets making a trade, so that New England, you know, the team that has beaten your team down over the past literally 20 years, you know, every time you show up, you know, they're the team that made you famous for the butt fumble. They're the team that has really just, you know, rubbed everything in your face these past 20 years, and you're going to make a trade with them so that way they can go take a quarterback. I find that hard to believe. I mean, again, anything is possible. But, you know, that's just a very difficult thing for me to believe. Now, Justin, I do have to wonder, when seeing Matthew Judon go to the Pats and losing out on him, what were your thoughts on that? And, you know, and what, you know, just in general, where do you kind of stand with that?
I'm upset with it. I saw it coming. I know we couldn't afford the same way I felt about Yannick Ngakoue. It was we couldn't keep both of them. Both of them are amazing, but at the same time, I'm not paying $13 million for Yannick, and I'm not paying $16 million for Matthew Judon. So I believe you guys got a very good player in Matthew Judon, and I expect y'all to do good things with him.
Yeah. See, I think with all the acquisitions the Patriots have made this offseason at free agency, I have a hard time believing they're going to take a defensive player. Although this is Bill Belichick we're talking about, and when it comes to Bill Belichick in the draft, expect the unexpected. Like you expect them to go one way and they go the other. The complete opposite. Which quarterback
would you want if they traded up?
That is a tough one. I believe. Like I've said before, I believe that Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson are going 1 and 2, and it's going to be hard for them to be drafting to get up there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a possibility since the Jets, maybe they will trade back. But like Brian said, why would they trade with us? Then again, they are the Jets, and there's a difference between the Yankees, Red Sox, where both organizations are fairly competent, and there's Patriots, Jets, where it's kind of one is smart and one's a complete and utter
disgrace to football.
Disgrace to football. I mean, they don't know what the hell they're doing out there.
I mean, I don't know. I looked it up one time. Joe Namath, who is the Jets' golden boy. You know who has a better like touchdown to interception ratio than that guy? Jay freaking Cutler has a better touchdown to interception ratio than Joe Namath.
Mm-hmm.
Jay Cutler's kind of a special case, though. It is weird. That is stupid, though.
I don't know.
He's a special case.
I don't know. But, and the reason I bring up Jay Cutler is because, they actually have a very similar, career kind of thing because they both started around the same time. Cutler around 24 and Namath around 23. And I forget, Cutler had about, 200-something touchdowns to about 100, maybe 70 or something, so interceptions. Whereas Namath, I think, had 173 touchdowns, 200 and I think 20 interceptions. And just different stats in general. Yet just because Namath played in the Big Apple and he became New York's golden boy, he's in the Hall of Fame.
And he has a ring.
Yeah, and he's touted as one of these NFL legends. Where all respect to Joe Namath, I could never do what he did, ever. I could never step on a football field and do what he did. And again, he played in the 60s. It was a different era. Running was a very, running the football was definitely, something more you focused on in the game. But, you look at you look at him as a Jets legend, whereas many other guys have been able to do, much more things, much better things. I mean, and again, no offense to Joe Namath. He's a great guy, great quarterback. But, you look at him and it's just and you don't see, and it's just not a comparable comparison to some of these other guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's interesting. I'm not sure. It's going to be hard for me to I just found that interesting. I got that update while I was in class, and I was thinking and this was while I was kind of doing some research while I was in class. I had my laptop open and I was looking at rumors about the Patriots possibly trading up for this show tonight. And I get this update and I'm like, interesting. So they're trying to trade up, and this team who's drafting at number 2 doesn't want to take a quarterback. There's a possibility here that they might trade back, and they may be that desperate to get a trade partner that they'll be like, hey, you guys are looking to trade up, so why don't we help each other out? Now, for the number 2 pick, that may take an extra first round pick, but for Zach Wilson or for a Justin Fields or for a Justin Fields, who is a Mac Jones.
I mean, why would they
Mac
trade?
Jones is going to be taking the second. But yeah, they do need to they certainly need to. I think they need to take a quarterback, and I'm just not sure if all these quarterbacks are going to last until pick 15. Trey Lance is not going to last until 15, most likely.
No,
Justin Fields will not last until 15.
No.
Yeah. And in terms of Belichick trading up, I would say this, and why would he trade up for a guy like that? I mean, I looked to last year's draft and I see him trade up for two tight ends, Devin Asiasi and Dalton Keene. Neither one were an impact last year, and because of that, he had to go to free agency this year and actually spend on guys. So I mean, with Bill Belichick, if he values a guy enough that he is willing, that he doesn't want any chance of a guy going, I think he'd be willing to do whatever. I mean, I don't know what the situation with Trey Lance is. I mean, I guess he didn't go to his pro day. I don't know what. I mean, Alabama's was today, but I don't know if he went. I don't know if he went there to go check out Mac. But it's a very interesting situation. That's all I can say. I mean, we're gonna have to wait and see with Bill Belichick, because frankly, the only person who knows that Nick Caserio used to have a clue, but the only one who definitely has a clue of what's going on in Bill Belichick's head right now is Bill Belichick.
But if I'm the Patriots, I'd probably prefer Justin Fields over Zach Wilson, just because of he can mentor under Cam Newton and take away some positives more so than the negatives.
Yeah.
And just be under him for a year and then take over in year 2.
I mean, the Ohio State quarterback, though. I mean, for some reason, guys out of that school just haven't been able to adjust as well.
There's something with that kid there's something with kids coming out of that school, and
Cardale
Jones,
JT Barrett, Braxton Miller had to become a receiver. I mean, it's very weird. Like, just for some reason, kids coming out of that school, like there is just a gap for some reason, even though
it is mainly at quarterback where that happens.
Yeah.
There was a who is this kid? Who is the other kid? Ezekiel Elliott. He played for Ohio State. So I feel like it's more of a quarterback thing, and it's the same thing with LSU. They haven't been able to draft a quarterback, but maybe this is one of those things. LSU, they developed Joey Burrow.
Who came?
So maybe it's one of those things
who came from Ohio State. So I mean, the one guy they let go ends up becoming the first pick of the draft.
Exactly.
So
maybe.
And I mean, it was a similar situation with Alabama quarterbacks. I mean, for a long time, you look at guys like A.J. McCarron, who's just been a career backup in the league. There are just some guys that I can't even name for Alabama, but their programs were good enough to take them to the national championship. But you look at these, but you look recently, and you've seen guys like Jalen Hurts get a shot in the NFL for the Eagles. You see Tua, who a lot of people have some questions with Miami, but I think but he has a chance to still prove himself. And now Mac Jones coming out, they've seemed to figure some stuff out there, while Ohio State still seems to be in a bit of a rut with guys. Again, Fields could be the guy who breaks through, but there still has been. But those are two schools that have very, very good football programs, but lately have yet to produce exceptional talent at the quarterback position.
So Brian, let's say they whatever pick they wind up with, Justin Fields falls down to your pick. Do you take him?
I mean, again, Trey Lance is an interesting guy, but he really hasn't played a lot of football in too long. I mean, Mac Jones definitely has more of a body of what Josh McDaniels is used to as a quarterback. I mean, he definitely has more of a Brady type of body, just doesn't really move around too much. I guess he ran a pretty decent 40 time than what people were expecting him to run. He's just a much, maybe that might be a guy that fits Belichick's system more. I don't really like Jones as much. He does seem, in my mind, he just seems a bit more robotic in the way he does things. But that was a similar way I felt about Josh Allen when he was coming out. I thought that he was just going to be more of like, I thought he was going to be a very old fashioned type of quarterback. Whereas, he's come in the league and he's torn things up. So, I mean, my evaluation skills aren't all that, but I mean, Justin Fields, when he was playing against Clemson and all those guys, he was able to light some things up, and he put some people on notice. So I think that if he's there, I'd love the Pats to give him a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like people are drawing comparisons to Deshaun Watson, especially for him coming out of the draft, like the way he was, sort of more of like an athlete who could just do everything.
Yeah.
So I really like him. The only reason I'm like a lot of people, the only reason I'm skeptical is because of the place where he was drafted.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing. I'm not sure what I would take him if he fell there.
You're pulling the trigger?
I'd roll the dice.
Okay.
It's just too good to pass up. Like, think about it this way. If they take him and he winds up being a bust, you would say, like, well, if you're that, people would say, well, if you were in his position, in their position, in Bill's position, and somebody like that, a quarterback prospect like that, fell to you, you'd take the chance.
Oh,
and
yeah, 100%.
let's say they pass on him and he turns into this all-time great player.
He's going to
get blowback from that Like,
Yeah,
it's going to bite him in the ass for the rest of his career.
Yeah,
for the rest of his life.
It's going to turn into you passed on the guy. You had your answer from Brady and you passed on him. So, I mean, if it does fall to Belichick, we will get a real test to see, like how strong-willed is Bill. If it comes down to him, trying to decide, do I bring in Micah Parsons, the linebacker out of Penn State, who a lot of people have been drawing comparisons to, being a New England guy, over Justin Fields. Like, I don't think it would ever get that far. I think Fields would go up and would go earlier. So I think they'd have to trade for him. But, if it came to that position, we'll get a real chance to see, how dead set is Bill Belichick on taking his guys when he has a pick that isn't in the 30s or high 20s. Right.
Yeah. It's like I said, so I think we can agree if Justin Fields falls down there, the Patriots just have to take him. Unless there's a Trey Lance out there, but I'm not sure that's just a tough decision. But I mean, beggars can't be choosers at this point. If you're at 15 and one of those guys falls down to you, you pull that trigger. You take that guy.
Yeah.
Regardless. All right. Now we're gonna transition more over to free agency, which has wound down a little bit, but there is one of the biggest dominoes that has fallen. Kenny Golladay. He signs with the New York Giants on a 4-year, $76 million deal. So he was paid. He was paid a little bit.
Big boy.
And so now the Giants, they need that number one wide receiver. They get him. And don't look now, but Daniel Jones, he now has the likes of Kenny Golladay, Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, Kyle Rudolph, Evan Ingram, and Saquon Barkley, all at his disposal in this offense. Now, and their defense is still pretty good as well from last year. So now, the big question here, is this kind of a make or break year for Daniel Jones? Is this going to define what his career will be like? Will this be the determining factor of whether or not this kid can actually play?
Absolutely. Justin?
It has to be. It's this time. It's year 3 now. It has to be proven. Not only did they improve on defense, they absolutely improved on offense. Kenny Golladay, congratulations for getting paid. He's now on their roster. Darius Slayton, a good wide receiver, is on their roster. Sterling Shepard, a great number 3, is on their roster. And you have a running back as good as Saquon Barkley on your team. I mean, there's no excuses now.
You better come out and perform. Is Evan Ingram coming back too?
Yes.
Ingram's back. Yep.
Yeah.
Ingram's back. Kyle Rudolph's on the team now.
Yeah.
Like, you have a red zone threat. You have a guy that can work in between the 20s with Evan Ingram. Like, you have a running game now. Like, there's no excuse why you can't perform to the best of your ability now. And you have that defense backing you up, who just now added another cornerback in Adoree Jackson, who will help that defense out with the already stacked cornerback group with Logan Ryan and James Bradbury. So it's time for you to step up now.
I mean, Joe Judge is, making it, for a long time, the, New England.
I like him.
Yeah. For a long time, the New England coaching tree has been a tough one for guys to fall. I mean, you look at the situation with Bill O'Brien as a Houston Texan, that really blew up in his face. You look at Matt Patricia with the Lions, and even guys earlier in their careers, had some difficult stints once they left the team. But Brian Flores down with the Dolphins has seemed to change their culture and really seems to be a real hit down there. And Joe Judge, a special teams coach for a team, has been able to go to New York and completely overhaul that entire atmosphere around this team. He's been able to recruit guys to the city, and I mean, just to be able to see that in about just 1 year of time is incredible. I mean, but obviously for Daniel Jones, the guy, a lot of everyone has been wondering from you for the longest time. You were taken so early, than most guys would have anticipated. A lot of people thought you were going to be a second round guy. The fact that the Giants went up and took you at this point meant they valued you really highly. And I mean, while you could have been a day 2 guy, and that would have been that you got a little more leeway. It is your year 3. You got to start pulling your weight around here. And if you can't do it with these guys and with these weapons, then I mean, the New York Giants will have to go out and search for a new guy at the position because, if you can't throw to one of these guys, you're not going to be able to make it in the NFL when you're throwing to much less.
Mm-hmm. So it's no secret that since Daniel Jones has been drafted into the league, he's drawn so many mixed reviews. Like there's so many people who are saying, well, he has a lot of potential, but on the other side, it's like he hasn't really been performing up to the standards that the Giants have held him to.
Yeah.
And all the people who are saying, well, he has so much potential, he's had built-in excuses for the entirety of his career, basically saying, well, he hasn't had a roster to work with, he hasn't had any targets, he's had defenses, but his offensive line's been garbage.
Yeah.
And here's one thing, that offensive line still isn't really improved quite too much. And when you go into the season, sure, he'll have that excuse, but if he performs offensive line or not, when you have these targets, when you have a defense like you do, and it's still the same result, that's a problem. You should at least be able to play at a high level with the team that you have surrounding you, regardless of the offensive line, and at least be able to show some flashes and show who you truly are, and then put the blame on the offensive line. Make that offensive line look really bad. Make everybody blame them, not you, Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
and then we can actually look at Daniel Jones as a competent NFL quarterback. But if he's not able to do that, they're going to have to look elsewhere.
No, I mean, I forget what it is, but he's been on like an insane streak of playing a game, and I don't think he's been able to play, like, I forget how many games it's been that he's been able to play and not have a turnover. He's had a turnover, I think, like, I forget the streak that it was, but he was on this incredible streak where he couldn't go a game without having a turnover, and the Giants were still able to get some wins, but he was averaging at least one turnover a game, and it's like, that dude, you can't do that and be a quarterback in the NFL. That's just not something that 32 guys in the league are trying to do.
Yeah, right. And a lot of those turnovers were fumbles, so I gave him a little bit of a pass early on, because I thought, like, at first, like, because a lot of them were fumbles, I was like, okay, he's not working with a great offensive line, so, like, I kind of understand it. But now, like, as his career's kind of gone on, the interceptions have racked up as well. And I wonder if it's something. Now, this is something where I wonder if this is something where it's starting to creep into his head, and where the kid's getting into his own head. And that could be something that's on the Giants for not putting a good team around him. I preach that constantly. If you're going to bring in a young kid, you need to set him up for success and not just screw him over like they've done with Daniel Jones. But at the same time, now that they have given him something, now it's the ball's in his court. He needs to perform.
Yeah. I mean, Justin, I know that the Ravens were actually able to steal one of the Giants, main guard, Zeitler, from them. Kevin Zeitler. He's now going to be protecting Lamar Jackson. He earned himself a healthy contract, during this free agency period. So, I'm wondering how sorely Jones is going to end up missing him, especially. So, you're talking about possible holes in the O-line. When you're taking out a solid piece like that, and replacing him, I'm assuming probably with a rookie or some veteran guy that you'll bring into free agency later on. It's it's not a great start for him, but with the weapons you have, man, you got to perform. There's no excuse anymore. If you put any other guy in this system, like you wouldn't expect anything less of them. I think that it's time we got to really put the pressure on Daniel Jones. It's time for him to come out, and it's time for him to perform.
Mm-hmm.
Right, 100%. All right, now looking at free agency as a whole, free agency, like I said, it's winded down a little bit. So now that it's a lot of the dust has settled, a lot of the dominoes have fallen, we're going to do a little activity. We're going to go through the winners and the losers of free agency. So you guys name one winner of free agency. We're going to go around, and then we'll name one loser of free agency. The biggest loser and the biggest winner of free agency. We'll start with winners. So Justin?
Ah, boy. I think the biggest winner so far in free agency is the Patriots. I believe they have addressed most of the needs they needed to. I believe they gave Cam Newton some weapons to work with, and eventually a quarterback of the future to work with. I believe they solidified that defense even more. And I believe this will help them forward to actually win more games and hopefully make a push towards the playoffs.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I gotta agree with you there. The Pats have been absolutely, as a Pats fan, you look towards moves like this in free agency. Like, one of these moves would have been a groundbreaking move. Like the local news would have had to have a breaking news moment. I mean, I remember when Darrelle Revis signed here, and like the world stopped. It was like I remember like Sports Center had this in. Like they literally went to breaking news. It was basically just like, oh my God, Darrelle Revis is coming to New England. Like, and it was like, oh my God, monumental star comes to the Patriots, and it's this big news. So I think when all of this happened in one day, I don't think Pats fans actually knew how to comprehend it. So, the other thing I'm excited about with the Pats too is I don't know if you guys been seeing all the stuff going on. I don't know if you know the thing called Pats West right now. A bunch of New England players are out west, like in California and different areas of the country. And they're kind of having their own little training camp right now. Cam's shown up, Jarrett Stidham's shown up. I put for anyone who does follow Down the Wire, I put out a post of it that Stidham did of it on my story earlier today on Down to the Wire's page. Another thing I heard Stidham say is let's get the newness out of the way so that when we get into training camp, we're ready to roll and we're ready to get this thing on the road. And so far Nelson Aguilar has shown up, Hunter Henry has shown up. Cam and Stidham are there doing their thing. Kendrick Bourne seems like a really fun dude too, and it seems like it's not even like the fact that they're doing training camps or having team bonding. Kendrick Bourne posted that the guys were going paintballing and they were kind of having some fun in that area. So I mean, there does seem to be a fun element with these guys, and they want to really engage with each other and get that chemistry out of the way. And I'm pumped to see that. But again, another team that I think has been killing it in free agency so far, Adam, I think you'd agree with me here, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. While they haven't brought in anyone too new, they've solidified the pieces they needed, and they were able to do it before anything started in free agency. They brought back Shaq Barrett. They were able to resecure guys. They were able to resecure guys like Gronk, and they brought back key pieces that they needed to do, and they did it all before the start of free agency. And it was all and it also was all capped off based on the fact that Brady did a restructured contract. It was a 4-year extension, but it was really just a 1 year on top of the 2-year deal he signed. The last 3 are basically all kind of just fudged years. Like it's likely that he plays all 4 and he plays till he's 48 years old. With Brady now, I have no clue what the guy's going to do. Anything's possible with him. He could play till he's 48, but it looks like it's just a way for him to kind of push out his signing bonus and make it so that way the team can go and spend more for guys, which guess what, was something that he really liked to do here, but Belichick really never answered the call with him on that. So I think the Bucs absolutely killed it. I think that the Pats obviously did great too. Adam, I'll pass it off to you.
All right, now two teams you guys bring up, Buccaneers, Patriots, two that are actually brought up a ton throughout the league that they're the biggest winners. The Buccaneers, they're the winners of free agency, and they didn't even sign a guy from outside the organization who was previously on a different team. And that might just be enough because all he had to do was bring the gang back together, and Brady in year 2 is going to light it up. The Patriots restocked roster. They really had to do that. They needed this.
Yes.
They bring in 2 tight ends. They haven't had that great tight end duo since Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski, where if you guys remember, Tom Brady thrived in that offense early, like those really early 2000s, like 2010 to 2012. He was playing the best.
I mean, the first year we really had to implement it with those guys, and they weren't rookies. We went to a Super Bowl. Like it really worked. Brady threw a touchdown to Hernandez in that game. I mean,
right.
That thing was going great. I mean, 2012, I think we ended up losing to Baltimore in the AFC Championship game, but we were missing guys like that. I think Gronk at that point was out, and the only guy who really was in that game was Wes Welker, who was an impact for us. He ironically left the very next year. I don't know. Like hopefully Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry can actually give us that Gronk and Hernandez thing without the possible murder investigation of one of our tight ends. Hopefully we can avoid that this time around.
Yeah. Now, yes, these guys are big winners, but everybody's talking about these two teams, because one has Tom Brady, They may be a lowly organization, but they have Tom Brady. So obviously Tom Brady's going to sneeze and they're going to report it. Patriots, they were former dynasty, Bill Belichick. There's a whole dynamic going on. There's a whole story happening between the Buccaneers and Patriots, between Tom Brady and Bill Belichick ever since Tom Brady left. However, I'm going to go in a different direction than both of you and show some love to a team that hasn't really gotten any attention, and I'm a little surprised by it, which is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'll tell you why. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're most likely going to be drafting Trevor Lawrence. And we know Jacksonville did not have a good team this past year. They didn't have the best roster. But they decided to go into free agency, and they said, let's build a team around this kid who they're going to draft. Now, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I love when teams take care of when they nurture a young quarterback who comes in. Now they have DJ Chark, kind of almost their number one guy. They bring in Marvin Jones, who is a veteran presence. He could be a guy who could really help Trevor Lawrence and be that one reliable target. They bring in Carlos Hyde to back up James Robinson, who could be to create a solid running game for Trevor Lawrence to lean on, and they've fortified that defense, bringing in the big name Shaquille Griffin, and bringing in a lot of different guys, not particularly flashy guys, but serviceable to keep the offense off the field, to give Trevor Lawrence a bit of a break. Now, this Jacksonville Jaguars team hasn't gotten any attention, but I love the moves they're making, and to bring in a generational talent like a potentially generational talent in Trevor Lawrence. They're doing all the right things to sort of prep for this new arrival, for this guy who has extremely high expectations as is. So, this is I think this is the team that hasn't gotten any love, and I really do think they deserve it.
Adam, I do find it funny that, Justin, you probably don't know about this, but for Adam to show love to the Jacksonville Jaguars, I mean, Adam, I remember a couple
AFC
years back
Championship game?
during the AFC Championship game, Adam, you got into a little spat with some Jaguars fan pages. I mean, I remember you used to.
I remember that.
I remember you started basically an Instagram war with these guys. And I remember, people just being like, man, is Adam okay? He's going off on a war right now. I mean, I remember you going off on an absolute war path on some Jags fans, just, completely trashing them for basically saying Saxonville and all this stuff. I'm just surprised. I mean, maybe, you can, now you can support them now while they're down. And frankly, I'll do the same. I think Jacksonville's done some great stuff too. I just find it funny that of the one team that you're willing to say, good job, you guys, it's the team that, I think, let's face it, what was it now? Maybe 3-4 years ago, you were absolutely destroying and leveling.
Let me explain one thing. I wasn't going to war with Jacksonville Jaguars fans. They were going to war with me. Let me explain one thing. I followed a Jacksonville Jaguars page, and I was actually, that one year when they went 10-6, they had Leonard Fournette. They had a great defense, the Saxonville Jaguars. I followed this fan page, and I was like, I'm kind of getting into this team. They're a likable team. They're fun. That is until Jalen Ramsey got a little arrogant, very arrogant. Now he's a complete D-bag.
He's always been
that. That fan page got really, really arrogant.
It became apparent to Adam.
And they were talking poorly about the Patriots. And one time I said, and they were talking about how they're going to go to the Super Bowl. I go well, good luck getting through us. # go Pats. And you will not believe the amount of hatred I got from that one comment. One kid told me to go kill myself. Another kid told me I look like a straight geek bro, and that I should go it's bad. It was bad. I got so much hate for just saying, well, I'm a Patriots fan. Good luck, guys. I'll see you in the playoffs.
Well, you should watch out. I mean, you can't even say anything bad about the Bucs now, because they all that's their new team now. They just all became Bucs fans.
Let me tell you something about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I love Tom Brady. I could give two rats' asses about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. When the Buccaneers lose, let me give you a little bit of
two
something.
rats asses, or you couldn't.
I couldn't.
Real? Why two? But you could give one.
I couldn't give two, let alone one. I couldn't give one, let alone two. All right, but let me put it this way: the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year were 0-5.
Okay.
Tom Brady was 11-0 last year. And the Tampa Bay
I see how it is. I see how it is.
Okay.
I see how you're right.
When they lose, it's Tampa Bay's fault. When they lose, it's Tampa Bay's fault. When they win, it's Tom Brady's the greatest of all time.
So when Tom Brady stole 3 picks, how do you explain that?
Well, who won that game?
The Saints.
Which game?
The Saints in the regular season.
I thought that was 2 picks. Oh, we're talking about a different game. But yeah.
38
no,
to 3. I'm talking about that game. He threw 3 picks.
Buccaneers lost that game. The defense was terrible.
Okay. You keep doing that. You keep doing that.
Defense was terrible. And I don't know.
I mean, Brady's not helping much.
I find it interesting how as soon as Antonio Brown goes to that team, they were a fairly well-oiled machine. People forget they were 6-2 going into that game. Antonio Brown comes in, they lose 3 or 4. I'm just saying there must have been some sort of pressure for them when they were going into that game.
I mean, it didn't help AB either. The fact that
Antonio Brown.
I mean, it was the fact that right after 2, it was found out, like literally, I think within a couple days of AB making his debut, the news came out that I think like he threw a bike at a security guard, and I was like, my God, like this guy cannot just catch a break, like
can't get out of his own way.
You know, man, if Vontaze Burfict didn't rock his world, he'd be on pace to be on Jerry Rice level.
Yeah.
It all ended when Vontaze Burfict just completely took that guy's head off. And now he shows up to training camps in hot air balloons.
He really hasn't been the same. Like we can all agree. Like he hasn't been the same since that happened.
No, I
he's
feel
the
so
same
bad.
AB numbers wise. I'm not sure if he's the same person.
No, right. That's what I'm saying.
I feel so bad for him. I mean, I watched a video of AB. Like there was a video of AB beforehand, and like he seemed like so like happy and like everything like that, and he was just like, I love to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I love Big Ben. I love playing the game of football, and I love all this. And then the Burfict had happened. And I remember during an interview he sat down and he said he didn't think he had CTE, but I mean, I think the guy something happened to him after that hit.
Yeah, definitely. All right, now let's transition into who are the losers.
The losers
of free agency. Justin?
There's so many, but first and foremost, how about them Cowboys? How about them? They did absolutely nothing other than sign Dak Prescott. I mean, and the safety from Atlanta, which should tell you a lot. Other than that, they are clear-cut the losers of this free agency. My God, they didn't fill any holes.
I mean, for some reason, the Cowboys, I don't know. I mean, I got to at least give the Cowboys credit because, Justin, for some reason for them, signing Dak Prescott was, for some reason, like over a year ordeal for them. Like they couldn't come to that agreement. It was for some reason,
soap opera.
Like, yeah, it was just a soap opera. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. It was such a soap opera, and they could not come to the conclusion like, oh, we have a really good quarterback on our hands, but Russell Wilson could be a good option. No, you have a guy. Pay him. I'm just like.
But that much.
I mean, listen, the cap is actually going up, though. I think it's going to be going up, possibly like, maybe 70 million or so, within the next couple of years. A $40 million contract for a quarterback, they might be thinking, may not be too irrational within that amount of time.
75 million first year, though.
I don't know, man. It's a lot, and I mean, especially it's especially a big guarantee for him coming off that leg injury. That's a lot to have a guy deal with. But I mean, Jerry is going to stick his neck out for this guy, and he's proving now that this is the guy he wants to roll forward with. As he likely approaches the end of his time as owner of the team. I mean, he's an older guy now. He'll probably pass off the ownership at some point to someone in his family.
His son.
To his son or whoever it will be now. And he's proving that he wants that he and I'm I'm actually glad that he's able to finally commit to a guy instead of putting Dak on this kind of, roller coaster ride. I mean, it was ridiculous, like how they were treating it the entire time.
That's a good point.
Anybody else who lost? Who else lost?
Yeah, Brian, who lost free agency?
I mean, very clearly, I can't look it over anything else. I mean, the Cowboys didn't do too many great things either, but the Houston Texans have been falling apart at the goddamn seams. They don't know what the hell is going on there. I mean, they bring in Tyrod Taylor to be the backup, but I think they brought in another guy too at quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think they brought in another guy too. Who did they bring in? They bring in Finley? I'm trying to think who they brought in. I'd have to take a look.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they've brought in 2 quarterbacks since then. They bring in Mark Ingram. They bring in I think they also brought in Duke Johnson, I believe, too. So they're bringing in 2 running backs. That aren't really even that high quality in names. I mean, I think David Johnson's still there. They trade D-Hop. Will Fuller's going to the Miami Dolphins. Deshaun Watson, I don't know what the hell is going on with these accusations. I don't want to make any statement on him. If all I can say is maybe let the legal process play out.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go from there. So I don't want to say anything on that, but they have a quarterback who's unhappy and he's currently dealing with a situation that is very volatile. Jack Easterby, has become one of the most disliked figures, I think, in that state so far.
In all of Houston.
In all of Houston. I mean, I was seeing like COVID-19 things, and it's at this table is reserved for anybody but Jack Easterby due to COVID-19 restrictions. and they're completely just ransacking that team right now. JJ Watt, the golden boy, who did so much for that city after Hurricane Harvey. I mean, I just remember all the money he raised to bring that city back from the brink. And he even had to look at himself in the mirror and just go, I can't do this anymore. I need to get the heck out of here. The fact when that guy can't even take the hostile situation there, it's just a proven fact that this team is going to go down the tubes in record time. It is so bad there. And, I feel like at this point you got to get Deshaun out of there just to see whatever value you can get, because things are getting dark in Houston exceptionally quick.
Now, you guys bring up some two great examples of complete losers of free agency, and especially the Houston Texans. That team has been a sinking ship that team's been a sinking ship since like in the past couple of years. They traded their number 1 wide receiver last year for a washed-up running back and not even a first-round pick. Would they get like a 3rd and a 4th round pick?
I think it was a 2nd in David Johnson.
Now,
yeah, they got a 2nd in David Johnson.
That being said, the loser of free agency is the Green Bay Packers, and I'll tell you why. Now, they didn't get any help for Aaron Rodgers. They did
bring back Aaron Jones. They did bring back him, but
right, but they overpaid for him, and they have AJ Dillon behind him, who could be like that passing the torch guy. And they didn't get anybody to help him. They lost their all-pro center. David Bakhtiari's coming off a torn ACL. All right, and now they restructured his Aaron Rodgers' contract after free agency's been basically over. Like, Will Fuller's already on a team. He's on the Dolphins. Kenny Golladay is already with the Giants. Juju's back with the Steelers. And they got nothing out of it. They got nothing.
T.Y. Hilton.
And, Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers in the heat of the moment after this past AFC Championship game, he said in the heat of the moment, and I honestly think the truth came out during this press conference. He said a lot of the guys, their futures are uncertain, myself included. And then the next day, when he was level-headed, he said, "Yeah, that meant nothing." Yeah, BS. That's BS.
Yeah,
Definitely meant something. And worst of all, they brought back that burnt piece of toast, Kevin King.
That was.
I remember you posted saying LMAO.
That was the cherry on top to the entire Packers free agency. That completely just what an that's gotta really sting. I mean, to bring back him, I mean, you saw what he did in that entire AFC Championship game. I mean, Billy Cundiff, or actually, I'll say it, the Bears kicker, Cody Parkey, I think has made all but one kick in the NFL postseason. He misses one that technically was a blocked kick, double doink, and he's cut from a team. So you go out and you have that kind of a defensive performance. You let up those crucial touchdowns, and you have the game-sealing penalty, and they go and the team that you were on that happened to, turns around and looks at you and goes, here's $6 million. Do you know what a dream world that is? Like, I could never mess up that bad. And then someone say, all right, we're only going to give you $6 million. I would, right. I mean, it did. I mean, that would be a fantasy world to me, to be able to wake up in that. I mean, I could never imagine messing up a podcast or anything so bad, and then have Spotify go, all right, we'll give you a $1 million contract to be exclusive with us. I'd be like, what? Like, I could never imagine something like that.
Right. They did nothing to repair that defense, and honestly, they brought in a liability, and it's just not this. They need to get their stuff together and actually do something. Listen to Aaron Rodgers, or else he's gonna request a trade just like Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson hasn't yet, but it's headed in that direction. That's another possible loser of free agency.
He's been asking for Antonio Brown.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this. I mean,
he's gonna join Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson as players who want out of there. If the team doesn't do anything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I have no idea. I mean, just the fact that you're bringing that guy back in, and I don't know, it just shows that, I don't know, the fact that, Green Bay just isn't willing to change. Bill Belichick reaped what he, basically reaped what he sowed because of, the way that Brady relationship ended. And he had to say, all right, I'm going to turn around the mirror, and I have to now make moves to make my team competitive again, because, the guy that did it for me for 20 years is now gone. The Packers the Packers have a real shot here to correct that mistake, but they seem to be, having the same blind spots that New England has had.
Yep.
Right.
And I like when we say all these things about Aaron Rodgers, and we still haven't talked about the elephant in the room in Jordan Love. Like, that still happened.
Yeah,
like, he's on the clock, and he knows it.
Right. Mm-hmm. So it's just a whole massive just crapshoot down there. Yeah. And it's amazing how that team has remained competitive for the past couple of years. It really is. And honestly, I've said my stuff about Aaron Rodgers, but hats off to him for being able to pull his crap together and be able to perform like this the past couple of years despite all of this. I have my issues with Aaron Rodgers. But regardless, he's still a great quarterback, and the fact that he's been able to work through this, hats off to him.
Yeah, and I mean Davante Adams obviously is a stud. I mean, my friend, actually our friend Adam, Pat Edwards, who's a diehard Packers fan, he had some issues with the fact that Rodgers would essentially get too comfortable throwing to Davante, and he became his only target. They have other guys there like Bob Tonyan, who proved to be a really solid tight end for them last year. But
don't you dare say MVS.
Oh, I was never gonna say MVS.
Just
that guy is
hard.
Yeah.
That guy is a bona fide 50-50 guy. You huck up a deep ball to him. It's one of two things. He's gonna catch it, or he's gonna slide through his slippery, greasy,
poor man's
paddle
Des Bryant.
Hands. Monkey
he's a poor man's Des Bryant.
No, he's faster than Des.
I know.
He's
that's why.
Than Des, and
but in terms of being a 50-50 guy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least Des had some amazing years.
Yeah.
If MVS caught 75% of the passes he was thrown to, then he would be probably somewhere close to Davante Adams, because he just catches these deep balls. I mean, probably different styles. Davante Adams is more like a little everything. MVS is more of the type of Marquez Valdes-Scantling is more of the guy where you just huck it up deep to him and he'll catch it. Although he only does that about half the time.
Yeah.
But they do have Lazard. They have They do have Scantling, although still, and
three
they
guy.
have the running back to throw to. But at the same time, like, they certainly need more. I don't think Alan Lazard is a real number 2.
No, not at
all. All right. Now, that'll be it for us tonight. Thank you for listening to us. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on Spotify and Google Play. Also, be sure to follow our Instagram at Fumblerooski_podcast. That is Fumblerooski_podcast to keep up with our podcast and the latest coverage of the NFL. Otherwise, we will see you next week. Over and out.
Bye.
Peace.